Hi. Okay, well, I'm here to talk about Rethink DB and how it fits in with Node. Has anyone heard of Rethink DB? Good. Everyone seems to have heard it. Anyone used it? Right, okay, very good. Well, let's see if you learn something new, whatever. So they call it the open source database for the real-time web. And that intrigued me when I came across it. And I've been using Oracle and Postgres and things like that for about, I don't know, 30 years, I think. And it was sort of a bit new, and I thought, let's have a look at this. And I was really quite intrigued what they meant by the real-time bit, because that's something I've always had trouble with more traditional databases. It's implemented in C++, and it's had over 5 years of development so far. And it is a NoSQL document-based database, but they say it's got joins. Well, it has got joins. So that's actually quite interesting. So you can create tables in there, and whilst the tables are schemaless, you can actually make queries that join between them. And I find that quite a nice sort of middle ground between the relational database and the NoSQL world. They've done a lot of work to make it very easy to scale out and cluster on the cloud, literally in their web interface. I'm not going to go into that today, A, because I haven't done it yet, but also because it can get quite involved. But you want to have all your shards and your clusters. You literally just click in the interface, and it does all the heavy lifting in the background. But the real thing that I'm interested in is the change feeds, because this is a feature that's built in from the ground up in the database that allows you to effectively subscribe to changes in your queries, and without having to do any work, it just tells you when things are changing. We're going to look at that in a minute. There are official drivers for most of the popular languages and some unofficial drivers as well for others. Installation, it currently only works on Linux and OS X. They say that there's a Windows version in the making, but who knows? I haven't seen it, but that's okay. And you download it either from their website with a normal sort of installer, or even they've done a homebrew thing. They actually even recommend using it. You just brew install Rethink DB. Takes about 40 seconds, and you've got it up and running. And even in the homebrew, it gives you a little instructions on how to set it up to start up each time your Mac starts up by putting a little symbolic link in your startup items or whatever. So once I've done that, I've installed it, and I've never, ever touched it again as far as the installation is concerned. Now, it doesn't use SQL. It uses something called Requel, or Requel, I don't know how they pronounce it, the Rethink query language. And it's quite different to get your head around, but after a while, it's really quite nice, because it is like programming. It's all the functions are chainable, and you'll see. It's better to see it in a minute. And it's quite deceiving, because while you're writing if you're writing in JavaScript, it looks like you're writing JavaScript functions. You've got to remember that all the code actually does run on the server. So it is literally, you think it's running on your machine because of the way it's constructed, but they actually upload what you've written and execute it on the server. So I don't know how this is going to look on size-wise, but just a bit of JavaScript here. On the Node side, to install it, you just literally do the npm install in a normal way. In your project, you would require Rethink DB. It sort of seems traditional or whatever to call it R, as R means Rethink DB. And then, for example, to create a table, you literally do, your normal r.table create. The language is quite, it's quite obvious. And you get a callback. You pass it in a connection, you get a callback when it's completed. So you can create tables, and then probably easier to show you the r.table line, the fourth line down. Sorry, the third line down, r.table creates, meant to say table, sorry, I beg your pardon. To query a table, you literally just say r.table and the name of the table, and it gives you back all the data in the table. If you want to get one of your documents by its ID, you would do a .get, and if you want to filter, you can pass in the specifications you want to filter on. But then the last thing that gets really interesting is the changes. You literally can add the word .changes to nearly every, not all, but nearly all queries, and they suddenly become what I call live. And here we go. I've read in Oracle you've got, and Postgres, you've got ways of getting notifications when things change. And when you read the documentation, they sort of say things like, we don't expect many subscribers to these things because it's quite heavy, and we wouldn't expect you to have hundreds of listeners to your database changes. We suggest you have one or two and then publish it out to sort of a pub sub environment or whatever. The documentation for Rethink DB sort of talks about it very differently. We want subscribers, and we would expect to have tens of thousands of subscribers hitting alive at any one time, listening to the changes to their queries. But what's interesting is the queries they're listening to are not the same. You don't just have one thing say, tell me when something changes. I could be saying, tell me when the pizzas arrive, and you could be telling me something about when the doors close, or whatever the examples is. You will get changes to what you're interested in. So in Node, that is an example there of literally inserting a row into a table. That's using promises. It supports both sort of traditional callback and promises constructs. It's quite familiar to people, I think, you'll find. And to do the same thing with the changes, where I say I want to read the real-time notes table, and I want to get changes back, and then I get a cursor back from it, and for each time I get, each time there is a change, I then emit down my socket, my web socket, the data that I want to send down. So I've got a little demo, and we can play along here if you want to in a second, but it's on GitHub, and it's just I tried to write the most simple. I didn't do that in 20 minutes tonight, I did that before. But it didn't take me a very long time, actually, because what's nice is Rethink DB is taking away a whole load of things I've got to worry about out the way. I don't know how it will scale in a massive, massive production environment, but certainly to get something up and running where you've got a database and you have push data, it really is very, very easy. So I've written a little mini post-it application, and we can go and have a look at it. I knew I was going to have a problem with the screen of you're not going to be able to see any of this. So if you add a post-it and say, I don't know, hello, and then create it, it creates the post-it there, and you can move it around, whatever. But what's more interesting is if you will do it. So if you've got a mobile or you're on the web, if you want to go to this bit.ly link, bit.ly lnug 230316. And we may or may not see. Sorry, beg your pardon, go back to bit.ly lnug 230316. Has anyone managed to get it?
Yeah, well, I think so.
So, yeah, all right, now I'm there. And you can see there that's going, and if I load up their web interface.
It's not mobile first.
Come on.
20 minutes, come on. It's really cool. We'll start deleting. No, let's just delete it.
So in the right-hand page, that's the sort of the output from their console. And as you're literally, if you drag messages around, I'm updating the database to change the coordinates. You're adding notes, deleting notes, whatever. And actually, that's probably the most users I've ever had running in a Rethink DB at the same time. So, and it hasn't crashed yet, running on a little box at home. So that's quite interesting. The code for that server, which is just a node server, using the really cool socket IO, which is really nice. It is a page and a half of code. And if you want to look at it, it's on GitHub. It really is. There's so little code that you're having to worry about in what is a simple application, but does a little bit of stuff there. So that was my very quick talk through Rethink DB, and if you've got any questions, I'll try and answer them. Has somebody hacked already? It's not meant to be a hardened production thing. Anyone got any questions? Or? No? Okay, very good.
How would you compare it to something like Redis, where you can also do quite a lot of subscribe?
Okay, I haven't used Redis. I haven't myself used Redis. So the question is, how would you compare it to Redis? Which I thought was much more of a sort of a publish-subscribe thing. This is a database that has publish and subscribe in it. So I know we didn't talk a lot about the database here, but it's got all the normal stuff you would expect with, writing queries and filtering, whatever. As I said, I haven't used Redis, so, does anyone else know how Redis would compare to that? No?
Well, I guess with Redis you wouldn't get a creative, and also the fact that it wouldn't really, do push notifications like the Rethink database is doing right now. Because if you're pops up channel, you have to actively listen to it because you're using it as a message queue with someone else.
Okay. Sorry, I don't know about that. Okay.
Brilliant.
That's it. All right, thank you. Cheers.